Hey, this is Paul, and I wanted to go ahead and give my thoughts on the best episodes of Star Wars Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. These shows have always been in my periphery. I've kind of had a passing curiosity of wanting to check this out. Now, the Star Wars franchise has been in my life for most of it. I'm 45 years old, and Star Wars franchise began in 1977, and I was born in 1975. And I've always had an interest in the franchise. I don't consume every single piece of content that the franchise produces, but I've played the video games, I've read some of the comic books, I've seen all of the movies. I haven't seen actually the Clone Wars movie. I never saw that actually. That's a good point. But I just wanted more Star Wars in my life during this quarantine time, and it's so great that Disney Plus they have the whole series of Star Wars Rebels. They have the whole series of Star Wars Clone Wars, but this series for me suffers from the same thing that the Arrowverse shows suffer from is so many episodes, and I do not want to sit and watch every single episode. So I just Googled simply best episodes of Clone Wars and best episodes of Rebels, and they were definitely some fantastic gems in those lists. I cross-reference them and just to make sure these 2 or 3 websites all say that this particular episode is fantastic. So in doing so, these are my thoughts in watching all this content, and I would say my favorite thing that I enjoyed watching all these episodes was the connective tissue and the deepening of the story from particular elements from the movie, such as maybe some backstory on Obi-Wan, more details on Order 66. You also get to see, now I'm more like in Clone Wars now, I'm going to get to Rebels in a moment, but you get to see how Yoda came to find the knowledge of communing with the dead. You get to see more of Anakin slowly going into the dark side with small hints made by the producers of this Clone Wars series. Like some of his actions would be deemed maybe a little aggressive, a little assertive, or not in the Jedi way. You spend more time with a secondary character who is much more fleshed out within Clone Wars and Rebels, and that being Darth Maul, who becomes so much more of a character and such a fantastic character as well. And you also get a deeper dive into the Mandalorians and their history and this black lightsaber that you see in the Mandalorian series currently now on Disney Plus. What is the history behind this sword? Some of the things I mentioned in those points there, they were more so in Clone Wars, but then they also bleed into Rebels, and there's more stories kind of developing those threads that I was mentioning about. The second great thing that these episodes do is introduce you to characters that you care about. And I guess that's one of the good things about having so many episodes is you kind of get to spend more time with a character, and you kind of develop whether you really like this character or you don't. Dave Filoni, who was kind of the creative behind these shows, has introduced some fantastic characters that are slowly making their way to the small screen and possibly to the big screen one day. As, like I just mentioned in The Mandalorian, you start to see Bo-Katan, you start to see Ahsoka Tano, characters that were created in these shows. Another character that appeared in the movies was a character like Saw Gerrera, who was introduced in Clone Wars, and he's also in Rebels as well, and you see him in Rogue One, played by Forrest Whitaker, and also voiced by Forrest Whitaker in a couple of episodes, which I thought was very cool, that you bring back Forrest Whitaker, you bring back Liam Neeson to do some episodes where he is Qui-Gon Jinn. I think that's fantastic. So you start to see kind of like the movies, the TV shows bleed into each other. I really, really enjoy that. Other characters that were introduced specifically in the Clone Wars were Cad Bane, a character like Rex, who I do hope you get to see Rex because you spend so much time with this character in between both of these shows. You see the Night Sisters, which were super cool. The fantastic thing you could do with a TV show is, since you have so many episodes, you can also kind of have different shades of a character where they can be super bad guys, but then you can see a moment when they are actually kind, or they're looking for a connection, or they do a good deed. Getting into Rebels, you have fantastic characters like just the main cast being Zeb or Ezra or Hera Syndulla, more characters that you'd like to see show up, hopefully, in some of these Disney Plus shows that are forthcoming. Earlier this year, Disney Plus had like that big investor meeting where they announced a bunch of stuff, and Kathleen Kennedy, the current head of Lucasfilm, announced a bunch of these Disney Plus shows that are coming. And like I said, Dave Filoni is often the creative behind these shows, and it'll be great if he can inject some of these characters that were never known of or heard of and introduce them into upcoming Disney Plus shows. Now, Clone Wars instantly appealed to me because myself, the viewer, has already watched like these Star Wars episodes and these movies, and by the time Clone Wars came to be, we heard already about 5 movies: A New Hope, then the Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and then you had that first movie, I'm forgetting the name of it right now, and Attack of the Clones. So you kind of had all this history already. So when the Clone Wars series came out, there was already a connection there because all these characters were familiar. But now with the Rebels, it didn't have that initial appeal. It was kind of like, this is a little bit rough. But the more, I watched it, the more I became endeared to the characters. And both of these series, and I've mentioned this in so many of my TV and movie reviews, I'm very sentimental. So they also had like tender moments where like I was almost brought to tears in terms of like, let's say Anakin and Ahsoka Tano connecting, or like Ezra and Kanan connecting. And I enjoyed those moments, definitely. The voice cast does a fantastic job. The highlight for me that I know of is Sam Witwer when he plays Darth Maul, because he's so expressive, like in his voice, like it like goes up and down, and he's like crazy, you know what I mean? So I very much enjoyed his performance. But then there's the voice actor who does Obi-Wan, who, like I said, is such a staple. And then like the voice actor who does the clone characters, like a Rex or a Gregor or a Wolf, right? Like these voices that you just hear after so many episodes, and you just become very familiar with them. And both of these shows start off geared towards kids, but definitely as they continue, they definitely get dark. There is death, there's high stakes, and it makes you question, like, is this really for kids? With some of the stuff that they show, there's death, there's people getting sliced up and by lightsabers. There's not like gushing blood or anything like that, but people are definitely getting run through with lightsabers for sure, and like, people are being exploded, and like I said, you don't see limbs, but it's definitely a more mature show, and I find that the show works better that way. I wish that they just wouldn't gear this completely towards kids. Maybe they're just trying to get more kids into the universe, getting like new eyeballs that'll be with them forever, similar to myself, who's been watching Star Wars for so many years of my life, definitely. But I find that it works better when it's maybe teen to adult content. And adult meaning like it's just much more like hardcore, and like I said, there's stakes and there's danger. And so this is when I find that these series work best, and they have episodes that kind of get into this territory, definitely. The only complaint that I will have, and this is a complaint I guess that goes even for the movies, just for all Star Wars content as a whole, the Rebels go into the enemy's base, and then they're there to like free someone who's been captured, or like steal some plans, and then they escape from the base, and then everybody notices there's a bunch of explosions, it's a daring escape, and then they get away. Like, this is a thing that you see repeatedly in Star Wars movies and TV shows. It's kind of like, we're doing this again, so that's my only complaint, because you see this repeated so often. But other than that, Clone Wars and Rebels, Star Wars, they're both fantastic, and I definitely recommend them. And maybe even take the route that I took, to see kind of like the best of, as opposed to seeing every single thing. Because these TV shows, similar to even with books, like we think we have to just like stay there and watch the whole thing. But I mean, we don't do that with like YouTube videos or with podcasts. Like, if there's something that we want to watch, we watch, and then we kind of like, okay, we let it go and we don't go back to it, or we just kind of move on. I'm starting Star Wars Resistance now, but the first episode is really, it seems like it's playing to kids, and that's kind of, I haven't even finished it yet, I'll be honest with you. And I don't know if I will go through Star Wars Resistance, or even they got the new animated Faces of Destiny and Forces of Destiny. I think it's very female-centric, so we'll see. But I definitely recommend these two. And if you want to see more of my content, you can find it at improveandhavefun.com. My name is Paul, and thank you so much for watching.